Hi everyone and welcome to IT Chronicles 10 and Tech. We're coming to you from Knowledge 18 in Las Vegas with ServiceNow. I'm Kirsty McGowan. I'm here with my co-host Carlos Casanova.
Hey Kirsty.
Hi Carlos. And it's our pleasure to be chatting with Shane Chagpar from Kepner Tregoe, looking very bright and breezy today, Shane.
Doing my best, keeping the colours nice and bright.
Yeah, so obviously problem solving is where Kepner Tregoe's strengths lie. And we were talking off camera before a little bit about getting those problems solved permanently. So how do you go about getting that to happen? What's your secret?
So traditionally, this is where I do the KT spiel of like, if you use a good solid approach, you can get to root cause. Through my work the last couple of years in this space, getting to root cause isn't enough anymore. You come to a conference like this in ServiceNow, and there's great vendors, but everyone seems to be distracted or focusing on different parts of what I call the troubleshooting engine. So I think what's important today is understanding that engine, how it cycles, and then getting things solved permanently for your company.
So when you're, like you said, you go into root cause, what does that explain to someone that maybe isn't as familiar with what you guys do? How is that different from root cause? Solving it permanently from just root cause.
Sure.
Kind of speak to the difference between that.
So if we start with this engine idea, like something happens, events get monitored and they turn into an incident, or maybe a customer calls in, and there has to be some sort of investigation. There's a decision that gets made to keep services up as best as they can. And then that's usually what we call incident management. We transfer over to problem. And in problem, you try to use skills such as the ones we teach to organize information, capture it, gather it the best way we can, use the scientific method and get to a root cause. The part I'm having difficulty with clients with today is they take that root cause and then they assign it as a task, not to a team, but to usually the individual who found it out, so like a subject matter expert. And that person has, there's no incentive for them to solve. They don't give time for that person to solve. It gets, it might get solved, but there's no project that gets made in the company. There's no investment. And if there is, we don't prioritize them, we don't choose them. We do all these other projects outside of IT through deliberate choice. But our paradigm in IT is that, getting the user back up is good enough. And if we understand why it went down, we can get tools to figure out the rest.
So you go into companies who are just constantly running on workarounds.
Firefighting mode is constant. And that's not the way that I'd like to see the industry run.
If you could get rid of those workarounds and just...
Then we wouldn't have a job.
Well, that's true. That's true.
There would be plenty of other issues to
I'm sure we'll find them.
And I guess the question I would try to understand better is, so it's the workarounds, but in my view is, it's the conscious nature of it. In some cases, workaround is what it should be, and that should be the end. In other cases, it sounds like what they're not doing is they're not investigating, is this larger than a workaround? Is this more systemic, from a systems perspective? Hey, this isn't just a workaround. Yes, that'll work, but this is systemic. Maybe we're having the same exact issue in 7 other areas because there's a true root cause of all of those elsewhere. And if we go and fix that, it's not just this one thing, there's the whole system downstream that will benefit from it. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Correlation tools help with that. We talk a lot about proactive problem management. If we know areas that are vulnerable, can we map them? And we help clients map them in a way that can say, our next failure, this is a particular area where you have a house of cards. If you have a failure in this area, we should probably put some thought into it to solve all the technical debt you've been collecting permanently and once and for all.
I mean, I like that term. I've been using it quite a bit. The technical debt. I don't think it's used often enough, and I think the majority of times it is used. I don't think people understand what it is. So speak to that a little bit. Explain again for people that are watching this. What does that mean? Because for a lot of people, I think it's a brand new term.
Sure. So technical debt is this idea that sometimes we consciously, maybe in the moment, put things aside, and we say, you know what? This is a system that's so old, we're going to get rid of it. We're replacing it now with ServiceNow, for instance. And it's a known issue, and we're happy with cataloging something as a known bug. And there's different types of technical debt. Sometimes it's because we upgraded a system and we've carried on some rules that have existed for a long time. There's technical debt due to creative problem solving. Maybe you and I looked at a pipe and that pipe was leaking. And instead of fixing the pipe because we didn't have the money, we said, let's put a bucket underneath it.
Right.
And then the bucket gets full. So we put a pump to pump the water out of the bucket.
Yes.
And this solution works until something in it.
And now we have 3 people that are carrying buckets all the way out. You know, the
MacGyver technical debt, the upgrade technical debt, and the conscious choice technical
I mean, I had a customer a few years ago who they had a problem they knew about, and it was easily solved by the person concerned rebooting a PC. And I got there and we sort of looked at how often this was happening, and it was a big team of people having to reboot PCs. We just added up the time. They were actually using 8 FTEs a year in rebooting PCs.
And that's the other side, right? We don't diagnose and really look at ourselves the same way we do as other business solutions. So rather than asking, how much better do you want your problem solving to be? Sometimes at the end of root cause, I say, what is your true willingness to change? Do you want a real solution or a superficial one? Right? And like, I mean, we all struggle with weight loss and other things like this. Like, do I blame the fad diet, which I probably should blame, or do I blame my lack of discipline or willpower? And sometimes we have to really take a strong look in the mirror and say, you know what? We have to mature the business, otherwise we will not mature our service ops.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, it's just amazing how we do that repeatedly with, you know, the patch, and never actually address it. And I guess, and I'm curious how you guys work with, and because you were kind of, I think, referring to it as the cataloging of that. If we don't catalog it, we don't have to go back and worry about it. Because we don't know how much technical debt we have. If we don't know how much technical debt we have, we don't know how bad we're doing. As soon as you start cataloging that, now you have to assign some accountability. Well, I don't want you to do that because that might mean now I don't look as good or the departments don't look as good. So is that what we're talking about? It's like, you know, it's not just the root cause, it's the technical debt, but it's really making that visible to the organizations to really understand, to your point, you know, hey, there's 8 people or 8 FTEs at the end of the day. It's like, what would this really cost us to fix once and for all? About 1.5 FTEs for the first year to fix it. And go, you know, moving forward, maybe a half an FTE.
Well, in the case I was talking about, it was even less. It was like 1 month's full-time work for 2 people.
To actually get it done once and for all.
To keep doing it. And that's
and that was gone.
It's tough to look in the mirror because again, as a lead, you don't want to look bad.
Sure.
But at the same time, those who are not adopting the new paradigm of customer experience first, they're going to fall behind. So if you don't get out there as a leader now and say, where are all my pain points? Even if you just keep that to yourself and don't escalate it up because maybe you're selfish. But if you at least know, then you know what you're walking into every day at work and you know what your team is dealing with. If you can take care of those FTEs, 1.5 FTEs to save 8, you can repurpose those 8 FTEs, unless you're Netflix, famous for just letting people go when they're not needed.
But I think an interesting point on that, and maybe kind of, I think we understand that, but there's a nuance of it. We're talking about FTEs, but it's really not that. It's the business value, the customer experience that really, you can't put a real number on that. I mean, obviously do surveys, but that's not the number I'm talking about. That's ultimately what it is. It doesn't matter if it was still taking 8, but somehow you've shielded them from those regular outages and all that noise. I think that's the biggest thing, because I think if we start there with a value, and from my understanding, the keynote this morning was all about that organizational change and culture. I think if we start looking at it more from that perspective, then these things should be less of a discussion and say, it's not 8, it's not 2, there's a better experience there, there's better value. That's what we have to do.
We have to align our vision to be thinking like that more regularly. You're absolutely right.
Well, Shane, it always goes quick with you here, and
thank you.
Appreciate for you coming on with us, and hopefully we'll get a little bit further next time we talk and we see a few more
great talking to you.
It is great being here. Thank you for hosting.
Thanks, Shane.